All right, good morning. I'm going over the first appointment today. This is after the business development call, after the cold call, the research, the databasing, you finally land your first appointment, and we're going to go over what to do, how to structure it, and how to have a successful meeting and get go to the next step, which is the second appointment, which should be the proposal. And you'll probably have 5 to 6 first appointments, honestly, but meaning you're not just going to go first appointment, get the books and records into the second appointment, because the second appointment is technically the proposal. So what I mean by 5 first appointments is you're going to go to the first one, you're going to meet them. Then you're probably going to go by again, you're going to meet them again. You're going to build a relationship before they hand you a bunch of financials. Maybe not. I've done it on a first met, even over the phone, Zoom call, financial. So it has, but just to be realistic, it's not always just going to go boom, boom. But instead of just getting there, there's reasons to even set these, right? This goes back on the business development call, right? Set meetings using reasons, right? Because what I've pushed meetings where it's like, why are we here? Like literally had a woman and her husband, she goes, no offense, but why are we here? Like she didn't know. And that's not a good place to be. You want them to know, you want them to be excited. Some of them might just meet because you've been consistent. They just want to meet you. And usually it comes down to, if they're interested at all, they just want to know what the price of their building is, and don't have that conversation on the first meeting at all. I've made that mistake where they pick your brain, right? And that's not good. If they're asking questions, that means they're controlling the meeting. So if they start asking, well, how do what's this? So what's this? That's good, because that means they're interested, but don't let them take over the meeting, right? And start asking you questions on the evaluation, because you're there to identify and isolate what their reasoning for maybe wanting to sell is, right? So if they say that, we'll get into this later, but if they're just like, well, how much is my property worth? Say, well, a lot goes into that. So, and that's what leads into the second appointment, because you say, well, for me to give you a true evaluation, we need a basic rent roll. We need the last trailing 12 months of profit and loss, expenses, and income. And then you can get a true gauge on the valuation. I've made the mistake in the past of letting owners know if they're not as sophisticated with a cap rate and how to come up with that evaluation. I've walked them through that early on in the meeting of, well, it's the net income divided by what the going cap rate is, which is 6.5 or 7. You divide that, gives you the valuation. Well, then the entire rest of the meeting, all they're doing is looking up in the ceiling, trying to figure out what their property is worth. They're not even listening. So don't do that either. So anyway, we'll get into more of that later on, but the reasons to meet might be a management, right? And this is stuff you'll touch on the phone, but you're not going to dive too far in. That's why you're getting to the meeting. Because you might say, oh, you're having issues with your management. Well, that's a good reason for us to meet. We can talk more about other resources in the area and how I can help. Okay, boom. Then here's a little opening for if you met them and say, I understand your management issues, and talk with a lot of owners like you with similar problems. I have some time available on Wednesday afternoon, Thursday morning. Let's get together, preferably at the property, to discuss some ideas on how to help you minimize some of these issues. All right, so that's a way to just, then again, this is on the phone. These are just some reasons to meet, to hook, and then dive deeper, obviously, at the meeting. So the balloon payment, this is what we were talking about the other day with your balloon is coming up, right? So it is very important you're moving in the right steps to keep your position as positive as possible and have you able to react quickly when the time is right. I'm in your area Wednesday afternoon, Thursday morning. Let's meet briefly to see how I can help you with this refinance. Right? Because if they can't refinance, that's what's called a technical default. And and that's not good for them. So they either need to sell, pay off the loan in full, or refinance into better rate and terms. Okay, CapEx, that's capital expenditures. Another one, or rental rates. Rental rates is a good one because especially right now, rental rates are changing very rapidly in this market, and there are various strategies I am seeing other owners implement successfully to not only maximize rents, but also help attract better quality tenants. That's a big one. I'm available next Wednesday or Thursday next week to meet you at your property to discuss, right? So this is always, you give them a couple options because if you say, are you available next Wednesday at 2? No, I'm busy. Okay, well, Wednesday afternoon, Thursday morning, gives them 2 different times. CapEx, that's another one. I know you have quite a bit of capital expenses you want to address, and I have helped a lot of owners like you make better decisions. I don't know if I'd maybe go that hard at them. Like I've helped make better decisions because then you're kind of starting off confrontational, but you let them know I've helped them save money and maximize value on these items. Why don't we get together 15 minutes and discuss some options, right? Equity return, low or unknown. A lot of owners don't know how much equity is in their building, right? Because they might not even want to sell, right? Like majority, I think there's only 5% of owners at any time in the marketplace that are even willing to sell, right? So that means the other 95 aren't even thinking about it or don't want to. So they're probably not going to know how much equity is built in their property, right? Because that's based off the valuation, or if maybe they've owned it free and clear, right? That's a lot of I don't want to say maybe dead equity, but they might not know if they have a loan and they've created a lot of value over the years with rental increases. That's equity that's forced appreciation. And so if you say there are a lot of options on maximizing the return and cash flow generated by your investments, I'm meeting with and talking with owners on a daily basis and see a lot of options you may be not thinking about. And that's when you can just go for the meeting and say it would make sense for us to meet to further discuss some options and maximize your investment. So you're not even talking about a sale, right? Because they might say, well, I'm not looking to sell. So then another one, this is a big one because a lot of owners say, no, this thing's making me so much money. I don't have issues. Manager's perfect. I don't get any calls. I get that. I've gotten that quite a bit. Oh, he's great. Yeah, I don't get any calls ever. So, and here it is. Everything is great now and life is good, but we've been here before and know how quickly things can change. I meet with a lot of owners and some are thinking outside the box when it comes to ensuring their income stream is consistent, even if the market should turn. Let's get together. So there's always an objective, you can overcome. And that is a big one. You probably get that one because they know. If they tell you, oh, no, it's all good. It's making me so much money. I can sell even to buy something that's making me this much, right? So there's always objections you can handle, right? So when you get into the meeting, and this video is going to go over video. Here's another one, a secondary one with some other points on the first meeting. But when you open, there's actually, before I get into this, there's something called spin selling. There's even a book written on it. I forget the author, but it's a way to identify problems, situations, right? It's the implication and then need payoff. So we'll talk on this, but before we get there, you might be awkward even getting into the meeting, and keep it casual, but you want to make it business, right? You don't want to just sit there and talk about all your kids and everything. You do want to talk about family and understand and get into that, but you don't want to spend a whole lot of time just chatting, right? You want to get to business. And a lot of these owners, they are businessmen and they don't want to just BS. They want to get strictly to business. So, a very simple opening line, literally when you're walking in, you just say, thanks for taking the time to meet with me today. I know we talked over the phone and I know the basics about you and your property, but there's still a lot I don't know, right? And then you need to ask for the permission without actually asking permission. But see, I've learned a lot by working with other owners just like you, and I'm looking forward to sharing some of these ideas. So when you say you're looking forward to sharing, it sounds like you're not just being selfish, like you're coming here to share other owners' ideas. So with your permission, like to get a good understanding, better understanding of your current situation and put some ideas on the table that you may have not thought about. My interest is being a resource for you and to help you achieve your goals. So then you also want to detach from this, right? Just it's a psychological thing, I think. So you're not just looking so desperate because he might not want you to be a resource. So if you say, and hey, look, whether we do business today or in 5 years, that's fine with me, right? So you're just detaching so that they feel comfortable, like you're not, a timeshare salesman right there pressing him to do something today. So then you want to give your offer though, which is what I'm offering is to get a better understanding of where you are now, where you want to go, but most importantly, how I can help you get there. We'll also be able to start an advisory relationship to keep you ahead of the market as well as help you with any needs, right? So this is good. Again, advisory relationship. We're not financial advisors. We're not CPAs. Make that known. You can use that as an example. Like, hey, you might meet your CPA quarterly, right? To go over some finances, right? Well, I can be your quarterly advisor in commercial real estate, right? We can just go over income expenses. It's no cost to you, right? That's why I'm a resource, right? It's a free resource. Don't keep throwing out free, but essentially, they're getting free information in the hopes of in the future using you to sell their building or find them other opportunities, right? So now we get into the spin selling. So once you go through this and you let them know what you're offering, why you're there, right? Because this lays out what you're even there for, right? Like, hey, thanks for taking time with me, right? You get their permission to really ask them about their situation because this is all financials. This is personal information, right? So it's you are asking basically about their income, right? So, but they want to know, what is your interest? Like that woman I said earlier, like, why are we here? And I literally said that. I said, my interest is to be a resource for you. And I might have said something like I didn't say anything like condescending, like, oh, there's no better use of my time than meeting every other owners. But I said it in a lighter way that, because she almost made it seem like I'm wasting my time because they're not selling. So why am I here wasting my time? And that's kind of what she might have even said, like, well, why are you wasting your time when we're not selling? And I just, respectfully said, there's no better use of my time than getting to know every owner in this marketplace so that when the time does come or you need a resource other than a family, real estate agent or realtor that might not know the commercial side or investment, that's what I'm here for, right? So and they appreciated that. And I ended up doing an evaluation on their building. It was I think it was like a little duplex. They wanted way more than what the valuation was. But anyway, it was a good meeting. And but once you get through that, again, you want to keep control. They might ask you questions, and that's okay, but don't just fall into every question that they ask you, right? Because again, then if whoever's asking the questions is controlling the meeting. So you want to control the meeting, right? You want to find out their situation, right? So you might have gotten earlier a management issue, or, well, I do have to pay a balloon off soon. Let me see if my internet's okay. But spin selling is S's situation, right? What's their situation? What's the problem in that situation, right? The P. The I is the implication, right? So what does this affect? Okay. How, some of these questions we'll go over, right? How are your vacations affected by this, or your weekends or time with family, right? That's the implication of the problem, right? And then the need payoff is asking if you could, what does it look like if you solve the situations and problems and the implications, right? If you could reduce time spent on this, what would that do, right? So you want to ask them. You want to get it out of them. You don't want to just tell them, oh, well, by doing this, you're going to have more fun. You want them to say, right? Because there was actually a book it was called Never Split the Difference. And that was what it was based on, is the highest form of persuasion. And this isn't some like sleazy, salesy persuading thing. It's having someone hear themselves say it, right? Because if they hear themselves say it, they're going to persuade themselves into doing it. So you always want to ask the question to have them give the answer you're looking for, right? So we'll just go through these real quick. So like, starting from the top. And if you remember these, then you'll just know you won't drift off, right? You can just weave in and out of these. And it just seems like a casual conversation. So it's like, oh, hey, when we're on the phone, I know you mentioned, your management, but before you tell me that, why did you choose to buy this property, right? And that's a good question, because when you ask, how did you get into real estate? Why did you buy this? What was your goals when you originally bought this, right? They're gonna just throw up. They're gonna probably go on for 2 hours. You might have to politely cut them off. I mean, I've been at meetings and you literally say, oh, so how did you get into real estate? And they said, you really want to know? And I'm just like, yeah. And then they just go on. And that is good if they do that, but you'll find out the situation. Well, so for example, you might say, what was your goal when you first got into this property? Or why did you choose this? Well, I bought this because I knew a banker and it was foreclosing or whatever the situation is. And then he'll get to, but then, oh man, it started getting so hard to manage he's just going to go on and on and on. I had a guy, it was a 116 unit apartment building, and he was down in Miami, and this was in North Florida, and he was having to come. He said he wanted to only come once every 3 months. Well, then he said it started getting to be such a management intense asset. He was having to go every single month. And it was just, even with this property management, he thought people were stealing, and it was just, he was working on bigger projects, right? Because it went to, well, what are your goals? Well, I'm working on this $1 billion project down in Sunny Isles, and this is taking up all my time. Oh, okay. So that was his situation. Well, the problem, right? The situation led to what his real problem was, right? So if they're having a management issue, you can probe that with, well, what is it about the management? What did you think? Why did you hire them? What are they doing that you're not feeling is getting done, right? And how, if this doesn't change, right? So here's the implication after you get the problem. Well, if you don't resolve this, what does that look like? How does that going to affect your business? Right. Well, I don't know. It's going to continue to run into the ground, and I'm going to spend more time because I'm going to be doing it. So that's when you can say, well, we've worked with quite a few owners with similar situations, not exactly like yours maybe, but what we found is if they have a more a less management intense asset, or if this could lead into the sell, right? They might still not want to sell, but you could take it a couple different ways. But first you want to ask, right? The need payoff, again, get them say, well, what do you feel would be the best way to resolve this? And they might say, well, I thought that's what you're here for, right? Well, then you might have to give them your input, but you wanted to get, well, I don't know. I mean, I guess if I sold, and then that's when you can lead into the, well, a lot of our owners have found right now, taking advantage of this market, they can sell high, find a less management intense asset to recast their capital into, and have the same, if not more, cash flow, and just free up their time. So, right, that would be the need payoff. So if you just, and this goes with any question from above, right? So they could say, no problems. Okay, great. Glad everything's going well. Well, what's your goals, going forward? How do you see this? How did you see this start to how it's going and ending, right? And then you'll get something out of even them saying no problems, right? Well, I eventually want to go out to the Virgin Islands for whatever. Like they'll start talking and say, oh, really? Well, how much time do you spend on this? How, what, why? Oh, well, who's going to take over this if you go leave? Well, I don't know. I haven't really thought about that. Right. So no matter what they have, right? A balloon's a big one, right? If you can find pain points, you don't always want to find something that's like a pain, but you know, balloon payments, maybe a partner died or they, you know, there's problems with the partnership. You know, those are big problems that do turn into sales. But if you just go with this opening and then you use the spin selling, like I said, weave in and out of these questions, you'll end with a, well, hey, what I'd like to do, even if you're not selling today or in even the near future, I'd like to keep you in tune with the market. So what we put together an offer, and this is how you get the books. You say, we offer a strategic analysis, which yes, of course it shows an evaluation, but since you said you're not selling today, it goes over each line item on how we can reduce expenses and increase your income to even hold on for the long term, right? So that he's going to be like, well, why are you doing all this when I'm not selling? Well, again, this goes back to the advisory relationship. You know, if I do this for you continuous, you're going to stay in tune with the market, and something might happen where you do need to sell. If not, you may be looking for other deals. If not, you'll still refer me out. And you can go into, do you know anybody else selling? But I wouldn't maybe do that on the first appointment, but you know, referrals at the very end. If you just stay in his corner with no expectations on having him buy or sell anything, you keep doing these and build that relationship, he's going to refer you to somebody else. Because he might be like, Tommy, this guy, he knows I'm not selling. He's putting these 40-page packets together that show me everything in the market. You need to use this guy, right? Because at that point, he's going to want to give you business if you're hanging in there. So it happens, right? But that's it on the first appointment. Again, there's a second little video here, and hope that was helpful.